With just a handful of months left until Resident Evil Requiem launches, Capcom finally announced the long-awaited pre-order information for that title. And with 2 additional classic Resident Evil titles now available DRM-free on PC, the future of Resident Evil looks as strong as its past. We're diving into it all, with all the latest Resident Evil updates, to exploring what will be a truly stacked future for Resident Evil. So smash that like button if you're a fan of this survival horror juggernaut, and go ahead and participate in my giveaway of Resident Evil Requiem, as I will be giving out 3 copies of the Digital Deluxe Edition for each winner's platform of choice. Now, why 3, you ask? Well, because it's been about 3 years since the last Resident Evil title launched, and with Resident Evil celebrating its 30th anniversary next year, why not spread the love? Everyone is able to participate, regardless of where you live, so if you'd like to test your luck for a chance to win one of 3 copies of this next Resident Evil title, hit the link in the description. Good luck! With Capcom finally releasing the pre-orders for Resident Evil Requiem, we've got that confirmed release date of Friday, February 27th, 2026 to look forward to. But before we leave Requiem, we gotta briefly go over all this drama surrounding the man, the myth, the legend, the king of Pound Town himself, Leon S. Kennedy, and his role in Resident Evil 9. It's been beaten to death by leakers like Dusk that this dude is going to be a protagonist in RE9, and this guy once again drops on Twitter some Reddit post where a poster claimed that a Portuguese language PS5 pre-order page listed a costume for Leon S. Kennedy for the deluxe edition of the title. Here it is in all its glory, with many quick to point out that this image could have easily been doctored. Here is an English translation where we can make out that Leon's outfit has been listed as DSO Special Agent, which would mean that this alleged deluxe edition costume would be a reference to Leon's appearance in Resident Evil 6, where he joined the DSO, the Division of Security Operations. With the original poster of this screenshot having their account taken down, along with the Redditor's account who posted this image also getting taken down shortly after publishing the post, the validity of this supposed leak has come under fire, and rightfully so. I mean, at the end of the day, it is super easy to doctor text like this, and the accounts being deactivated shortly after their respective posts conveniently paints a story to support a leak like this and keep people talking. But when push comes to shove, Capcom has not given us any confirmation about Leon being present in this game. We'll have to be patient with any further details of Resident Evil Requiem, as Capcom is clearly keeping its cards close to its chest with this game. With hardly any gameplay footage to go by and very little story shown when compared to previous mainline entries like Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, where many characters and locations were revealed months ahead of their respective releases, it's clear that there are some big revelations in store for us when we get our hands on Resident Evil Requiem early next year, and Capcom likely doesn't want to spoil these moments. Yes, it's very possible we'll be getting a trailer or 2 that gives us more to go with ahead of release, and perhaps Leon does in fact get revealed here, like maybe at a huge event like the Game Awards to further the hype and anticipation for this long-awaited title. But at the end of the day, Capcom has not officially revealed Leon being present in this game, so let's all be patient going forward. With Resident Evil Requiem embracing its legacy by taking us back to its survival horror roots and dishing out waves of nostalgia by revisiting classic locations in the present era, so too is GOG on PC. GOG's commitment to preserving classic games and essentially remastering them with better resolutions, control schemes, and enhanced save features has hit 2 additional Resident Evil titles, as Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 1 Remake have now joined the OG versions of Resident Evils 1 through 3 on GOG. While RE1 Remake and RE0 can be played via Steam, these versions on GOG are completely DRM-free and include various quality of life updates, so if this interests you, definitely go check out these titles on GOG. This comes following the recent statements GOG reportedly made about Capcom being initially reluctant to re-release their older games, as Capcom reportedly said that the remakes are better than the original versions. Regardless of your stance on these comments from Capcom, it's nice to have more options to play these older and still very beloved classics on platforms, whether it be on consoles like PS5 and Switch, or on PC via Steam and GOG, so this ultimately is a win for us fans. Now, in case you are wondering about why Resident Evil Code Veronica is not on GOG or on PC for that matter, well, simply put, no version of that game was ever released on PC, meaning you'll have to pick up the HD remaster of the title on console, or simply have access to the original version back in the early 2000s. As such, GOG and clients like Steam will likely not have a PC port of Code Veronica, unless Capcom themselves explicitly release a version of that title for the PC. This is one of the many reasons why so many Resident Evil fans have been clamoring for a remake of this game, among other reasons, but can we expect to see a remake of this title after Resident Evil 9 drops? Well, we know that Capcom has confirmed that more RE remakes are on the way in late 2023, but with their primary development team working on Resident Evil 9, what are their other teams working on, and more specifically, the teams that worked on Resident Evil remakes 2 through 4? RE2 Remake and RE4 Remake are widely considered to be the best of the modern Resident Evil remakes, and those teams were developed largely in-house at Capcom, helmed by their directors Kazunori Kadoi and Yasuhiro Anpo. Even so, these titles saw some development aid from K2 and M2, as Capcom's core Resident Evil team doesn't typically work on one game at a time. Rather, Capcom's Resident Evil team has its hands on multiple projects at any given time. It is why companies like K2 and M2 are often seen in the credits of these more recent Resident Evil titles as support companies that help disperse the work, allowing for the frequent release cadence of Resident Evil titles. To give context, K2 was initially formed in 2000 as a limited liability company founded by former Square employees, and was formally acquired by Capcom in 2008 and has since operated as a support company for AAA projects, dating all the way back to Resident Evil 5 all the way to Resident Evil 4 Remake. M2, on the other hand, is a game development company that was formed more recently in 2018 by former Capcom developers and talent from Platinum Games, and acts today as a Capcom partner, with the studio providing support for mainly Resident Evil 3 Remake along with Resident Evil 4 Remake, namely in the development of Ada Wong's Separate Ways DLC. Basically, K2 and M2 are instrumental in the design and execution of many of the recent Resident Evil titles, and without them, we wouldn't see these recent Resident Evil games released as frequently as they have. Now, I know Resident Evil 3 Remake is largely considered to be the most disappointing remake of the bunch, and I mean rightfully so, but that is not in part due to large portions of that game not being developed by the main studio. Rather, it was in an effort to ensure the release of the game shortly after Resident Evil 2 Remake was released. In fact, the development of RE3 Remake was largely developed in tandem with RE2 Remake, but instead of Kadoi and Anpo overseeing the project as directors, it was helmed by different leadership, with oversight from the previous team. Now, who knows what the future Resident Evil remakes are going to look like going forward, but it is exceedingly likely that Capcom has heard loud and clear the criticism of Resident Evil 3 Remake, and in an effort to avoid replicating that title's backlash, I'd bet my money that Capcom is seriously taking their time in properly making whatever remakes we have in store for us. As to what these games are going to be, well, for one, Code Veronica is very much likely, and I can also see remakes of Resident Evil 0 and another remake of Resident Evil 1 happening, as these three games are the only remaining mainline Resident Evil titles that have not been remade in a third-person over-the-shoulder format. Some leaks point at Code Veronica being the first game of the bunch to see a remake, with Kadoi and Anpo helming the project, but that's all completely speculative at this point. Seeing as how we got the last remake trilogy from RE2 through 4 releasing chronologically, I personally have a hard time thinking that Capcom would jump from Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake back to games like Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 1, as that would compromise the chronology here, but at the end of the day, it's anyone's guess. It is awesome to know that Capcom is determined to continue bringing us remakes of these classic games, and it's incredible to see that their older games are being preserved over at GOG. So it's safe to say that going forward, we have a pretty stacked future for Resident Evil in the years to come, with this next era of the franchise kicking off in a big way with its 30th anniversary mainline title, Resident Evil Requiem. Got nothing else for ya? Come find me over here in this video as we dive deep into what I believe will be the next Resident Evil remake trilogy, and I look forward to seeing you all real soon in the next one.